cholinergic antagonist or an acetylcholine antagonist. Now, those are all neurotransmitters that are associated with producing nausea and vomiting responses in different parts of the body. Usually we give something called ondansetron, which is a serotonin antagonist, and that was listed in the paper as well, so that lined up perfectly. And then I said, in the paper it says for the dopamine antagonist, we give something called droperidol. And he says, we don't do that anymore. Apparently that used to be used before we had a lot of these medications, but now we don't use droperidol anymore, and we use something called metoclopramide, which is what I'm actually used to seeing, and we didn't use for this patient. And he said the reason we didn't use it for this patient was because the patient didn't have a risk factor. They were older, they were no longer younger to middle-aged. And in addition to that, dopamine antagonists, you have to be careful using them in elderly patients because it can cause a lot of unwanted side effects. And elderly patients tend to be more sensitive to medication, so you have to be careful with that. Then the anticholinergic or the anti-acetylcholine drug is something called scopolamine, which a lot of people recognize because it's commonly used as a patch. A lot of people just get that over the counter and then use that when they have nausea, vomiting from like motion sickness. And then the last one, let's see, was the antihistamine. And the antihistamine was something called dimenhydrinate. And antihistamines are in the same class as like Benadryl, which is diphenhydramine. But dimenhydrinate is commonly known as Dramamine. So Dramamine, also commonly used for motion sickness, can be administered via IV to the patient to help with their motion sickness. And that was what I learned today. My preceptor literally had me pull up and read on the spot and then tell him about it, and then he corrected me in different places and helped talk me through what's actually important, what's clinically relevant. And then afterwards, he literally looked at me and he goes, "You did a good job. I like how you read papers because you're very detail-oriented." I got another compliment for how I read. I was pretty stoked about that. Also had me pretty floored that he was so nice about that. And then after all the day ended, he asked me if there was anything else that I wanted to talk about and asked me how I'm feeling about learning things, because he kind of divides things into learning the physical, tactile skills and then the reading skills. And he says that I've been doing good, and I was really happy to share that. So if you enjoyed that, I'm glad that you listened to all of it.